In the morning, jury selection will begin in Dallas for the trial of an alleged serial killer. That is Billy Chemirmir. He's been indicted on 18 counts of capital murder, named a suspect in even more. But Andrea Lucia shares with you now the pandemic is going to prevent victims' families from witnessing his trial in person.
So they traveled everywhere.
In her 83 years, Leah Corkin wandered the world, but her heart stayed put.
And they just look so in love.
After her husband died, she moved to Dallas to be close to her daughter, Mary Jo.
She was just full of life.
Then, on August 19th, 2016, she suddenly died. A medical examiner said it was natural causes.
So you take their word for it. And then I found her ring missing.
A police report Mary Jo filed for her mother's missing wedding ring helped investigators years later connect her death to a string of at least 18 murders involving elderly women whose jewelry had been stolen. Her death certificate now shows she died of homicidal violence, including smothering.
Murder never enters your mind. I mean, that's just like the most crazy thing in the world, but it all made sense. And so I called the detective on the case, and he said, yes, your mom was most definitely one of the victims.
5 years after Leah's death, alleged serial killer Billy Chemirmir heads to trial next week for the first time. But because of the pandemic, special precautions are in place.
This is where the spectators would sit, as we like to say, the pews. But now this is where the 12 jurors will sit so that they can be socially distanced.
To help keep everyone healthy and safe, Judge Rocky Jones says the court will be off limits to the public. That includes the families of the defendant and the alleged victims.
Because what we don't want is to be the overseer and say, okay, family member, you can come in, family member, you can't.
Like the rest of us, families will be able to watch live streams from the court's camera and one provided by local media.
You know, we can't go to the trial. We can't look at him. I don't know. I just would want to see this man who murdered my mom.
Victims' families say they also want to see and be seen by the jury.
They need to see how angry and mortified and how many people he affected. I mean, can you imagine looking at 18 people whose mom or dad was murdered?
And I've seen family members scream, gasp, get up and run out of the courtroom.
Retired Judge Michael Snipe says the reactions or mere presence of family members in court is something jurors pick up on.
You know, they want to know, who cares about this case? Do the families of the defendant care? Do the families of the victims care? Because if they care, it makes the jury care more.
Judge Jones says she understands.
I also believe that as long as the jurors have the opportunity to hear all the evidence and testimony, that is what's going to give the biggest impact.
But for those who already feel powerless to make a difference.
So yeah, I felt really bad. I couldn't protect her.
It's one more hurdle to finding peace. In Dallas, Andrea Lucia, CBS 11 News.
And just so you're aware, according to the victims' families, Chemirmir's trial is going to be focusing on just one of his alleged murders. I mentioned so many, and it's the last one he's accused of committing within 2 hours of his arrest, in fact. Andrea Lucia will continue her in-depth look at the case tomorrow with a detailed look at the prosecution's strategy.